Funding for the Mind Matters, Building Skills and Breaking Barriers, the Clubhouse Atlanta Way podcast was provided by a grant through the Hirsch Legacy Fund. The Hirsch Legacy Fund supports nonprofit organizations serving communities in Atlanta, Georgia, the U.S., and Israel with projects focusing on mental health, underserved communities, and Jewish causes. Visit HirschLegacyFund.org and discover more about their mission to help others. Welcome to our podcast, Mind Matters, Building Skills and Breaking Barriers, the Clubhouse Atlanta Way. Hosted by and about Clubhouse Atlanta members, our show features inspiring discussions that inform, uplift, and empower as we work together to build a world where mental health challenges no longer stand in the way of fulfilling careers, relationships, and lives. Be sure you visit our website at www.clubhouseatlanta.org. While you're there, subscribe to us at your favorite network. Now, let's shine a light on strengths and potential rather than limitations.
Welcome to Mind Matters, Building Skills and Breaking Barriers, the Clubhouse Atlanta Way podcast. I'm your host, Vincent Bagby, and today we have Sadeja Divine as our guest. She's a certified peer specialist. Sadeja Divine is a 24-year-old woman described by her friends as an outgoing, bubbly young woman with a passion for enlightening others. She graduated magna cum laude in 2023 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in television, theater, and film. Sadeja became a certified peer specialist to break the stigma by spreading awareness and hope. She is also certified as an In Our Voice speaker and Ending the Silence presenter with the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or NAMI of Georgia. She facilitates a support group for 18 to 30-year-olds with lived experiences. Also, she is a respect speaker with the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. She embarks on wellness speaking at various homeless shelters, schools, businesses, and mental health hospitals. She's been speaking out ever since her diagnosis in 2023. Sadeja has found purpose with her lived experience and shares her testimony on her faith-based YouTube channel as well. She strives to let others know recovery is possible and obtainable. Thank you for joining us today, Sadeja.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Okay. Let's get started. We have the first question. Could you tell us about your mental health journey to becoming a mental health specialist?
Okay, so, wow, loaded question, I say. Definitely started when I was younger, and a lot of my family members had lived experiences or they had a diagnosis. In fact, my mother was misdiagnosed with ADHD when she really had bipolar disorder, and that definitely trickled down into our everyday lives. And I will say we went from, having everything we needed, living, a good life, I'd say, to the carpet being ripped from under me when she got her diagnoses, and it was really hard for me to navigate that. And during that time, we did experience homelessness, and that homelessness triggered a onslaught of different experiences like anxiety for me, and my anxiety continued all the way into my early adulthood years, when in college I just experienced a lot of symptoms like not sleeping very well. I had a hard time sleeping, probably sleeping, I would say on average 3 to 5 hours, if that. I was also, moving very fast. I described it as like a hamster on a hamster wheel where nothing ever stopped for me. I had a lot of things to do. I was overly stressed. I had a high amount of anxiety to where that eventually led me to my diagnosis of bipolar type 2 at the end of my college career. And bipolar type 2 is where you experience either mania or depression, but I fall more on the mania side, and mania is described as a characteristic of just a lot of energy, it's hard to sleep, impulsive and rash decisions, and I was exhibiting all of those factors as I was going into my graduation. So after I got my diagnoses, I went into an inpatient facility, and then I went to an outpatient facility to kind of navigate how to, live with my diagnoses, as well as what that meant for me and the changes that came along with it.
It's very impressive to be able to continue with your studies while going through that. That's amazing. And then also,
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You somehow found time to become certified as a peer specialist to help others in the midst of less than a year. Has to be, I'm doing calculations, less than a year's time. You graduated, got things under control, managed, and branched out. So I guess how long have you been a CPS, a certified peer specialist?
I got my certified peer specialist in this year, actually.
Okay.
It's been 3.5 months that I've been a certified peer specialist.
Oh, okay, it's brand new. So your speaking and advocacy for others began before your formal certification, is that correct?
Yes.
Wow.
My speaking and advocacy for others began right after my diagnosis, I'd say. I was in recovery for about 4 months, but then after that, right in 2023, I started speaking with NAMI, sharing my story and enlightening others.
Okay, interesting. Okay. So what do you think makes someone a good candidate to become a certified peer specialist?
Well, first of all, to be a certified peer specialist, I think that you have to care and have to recognize the needs that your community needs. So for me, it started with all the stigma that I was facing, as well as from my peers that they was facing as well. And the stigma really came from a lack of education and understanding. We have made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot to cover. I did notice that in COVID, the stigma was kind of starting to break because people started to realize that mental health was just as important as physical health, and they coincide with one another. You can't have one without the other. So during that time, I think people began to be more open, and ever since then, we do have a more open environment to talk about it, but we're still not there all the way. But making sure that you, really care about your community and care about breaking stigma, as well as being a problem solver, because you're going to be put in many different environments and with a lot of different people where you have to navigate, okay, what I should say, what I shouldn't say, what information could be triggering to others, how you should be speaking to others as well. And thirdly, I would say having an open mind, knowing that, not all diagnoses look the same. All of us experience different things, and our upbringing and our environmental factors, our culture, all affects how we view, mental health wellness, as well as how we can help others. But those three things I think make a really good certified peer specialist. Yeah. And like I said, really it just boils down to caring about others and caring about breaking that stigma.
Yes, somehow you've managed, even though your certification time has been brief, very brief, your lived experience and your rapid resolution to all that is a path for others to follow and inspirational. It's amazing what you've overcome. Somewhere I've read that you experienced homelessness when younger. You talk about having the rug pulled off from under you. Clearly, you're a great student, and the cum laude, it's impressive. Not only that, to get through college, through all that before, there are people, that have had less challenges and have not done as much as you have. Welcome to be that young, and I want to be like you when I grow up,
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I've had my diagnosis for a long time too. It was during college as well. 35 years ago, 30 years ago, I graduated in 91. So they were telling us different things back then that you were able to do in record time has taken some of us decades to figure out. Also, you mentioned that you were a speaker for NAMI in 2 different programs. One was In Our Own Voice, the other Ending the Silence. Can you explain the difference between the 2 speaking engagements?
Yes. So I like to think that I've been operating as a certified peer specialist since my diagnosis through NAMI and sharing my story, going out to others. NAMI has 2 awesome programs. The first one is In Our Own Voice, where essentially you go out to different schools, mental health facilities, transitional homes, homeless shelters, anywhere where they'll literally hear you talk, and you tell your diagnoses. It's broken into 3 different categories. It's what happened, what helps, and what's next for you. Okay. And I always tailor my story to how it will best fit the environment and the people that I'm talking to. Okay. And that one's more of a open, free form kind of talking. And you do that with one other presenter. So you guys will go back and forth off of each other, and then each presenter has their own story, like I said. So the audience can glean off of your story and the other person's story. And like I said, that can be done anywhere that, people will listen to you. Okay, sure. While Ending the Silence is more of a formal speaking engagement, I'd say, and that's done within the schools. And I go out to the youth. I've been in middle schools and high schools telling them warning signs for suicide symptoms, as well as mental health awareness and problems as well. And Ending the Silence can also be for the workforce. That's actually a new program that we have been doing, and that we go into different facilities and businesses and schools, and we talk about suicide symptoms as well as mental health wellness in workforces and in in different corporations. So they're both kind of telling your story, but one is more of a formal engagement, and then In Our Own Voice is more so free-flowing, I'd say.
Okay. And also, one that I picked up on was that In Our Own Voice is a paired situation. So it's two people speaking to the audience as well for our contrast, and what works might be different for you as opposed to me or your colleague on that endeavor. And ending the silence, having started out as a focus on the youth, is now expanded into other environments where certain professions might say sales are very stressful and those sort of things. Environments, call centers where it used to be, and being in tune with your colleagues' situations is very useful.
That in the silence, there is two presenters as well. But the first presenter goes through a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is very informative. It lets you know statistics, what's going on, the onset of symptoms, and like what to look for. And then my segment is the young adult section of it, where I just share my testimony for 10 minutes. But the other person is not sharing their testimony.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. I was wondering.
Yes.
Okay, it sounds like talking is not talking. Different. Yeah. Okay. Different focus changes things. All right. Also, it says here you have been training through the Respect Institute offered by the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network. How has that helped you to streamline your message in your delivery to different audiences?
So I love the Respect Institute in that the Respect Institute, you go through a training where you narrow down your story. So like I said, my story for ending the silence or In Your Own Voice, I usually tailor it to each audience. While with the Respect Institute, it is one story, one testimony, and I read that same story every time. Okay. And it helped me figure out what elements I wanted to add in my final version of my story, I'd say. Because before it was like, okay, I'm going to add this for this audience or that for that audience. While with Respect, like I said, it's one story. In the training, you go through various different rounds to get that story solidified, and you have your team with you as well as a couple other peers who share their story, so you learn from them and they learn from you, and they help you kind of narrow your story down. And it has to be exactly 10 minutes, which was definitely the most challenging part for me. I was kind of used to just talking off the dome, whatever came, but with Respect, I had to be very thoughtful in what I added and did not add, and that can be done anywhere as well, and it doesn't have a focus on a certain group. So just knowing what to add in my story, what not to add, what to take out. Like I said, narrowing down to 10 minutes was the most challenging part, but it was a lot of fun. And being that I had a really good support system with the people who were helping me get my story to how it should be. And so now when I go out to different speaking engagements, I usually will use my Respect story now and kind of alter the Respect story for NAMI if I need to. But with Respect, it's that same story, and it's very easy for me to practice, as well as I know all the points I put in there, and I get more comfortable every time I go out. Okay.
All right. So the Respect gives you a solid foundation of the, hits the highlights, but a condensed version of things with a short attention span that everybody's forced to have now.
Yes.
They were me with ADD years ago as well. My father wouldn't have me on medication, and just learned to sit still.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's see. I guess this one, the next question expounds a little bit upon some earlier content we talked about. How did you find time to finish your TV, theater, and film BA, as you, in the midst of all those symptoms? How did time management play into that, or just not?
How did that work?
Yeah, how that works. Yeah.
Well, I always like to say I had a very awesome support system. I'm super close with my family, and my family is my everything. When we was going through homelessness, we eventually was able to get into shelters. And when I was in high school, we did have a home. My family of 7 lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I slept on the floor for my entire high school career, I'd say. So I didn't have a bed to call my own for, 5 years. But sleeping on the floor definitely sparked perseverance within around me. And it helped me know that, okay, I am not my diagnoses, and I can do anything that I put my mind to with the help of, my peers, my family, and the resources that were allocated around me. But just knowing that, okay, I can push forward and keep going. But my support system was the biggest factor in all of that. They were the ones who kind of caught my symptoms before I caught them. I knew something was wrong, but I was just ignoring it in a sense. But they were the ones to, tell me to focus on my sleep. Tell me, hey, something's wrong, something's off. Do you want to get help? And that's really how I was able to push forward getting my degree, because I had symptoms of pre-mania, which is where you're almost manic but not all the way there, so you're still able to be grounded and keep going. But they didn't really hit until after my graduation, and that's when I would say things hit the fan. But my support system were the ones to reel me back in and tell me, there's a way to keep going, and you can, figure out a different path for your life, because I was struggling after I did get my degree with what I was going to do next, the next steps I was going to take, and, not really knowing where to land because everything was changing so fast. But they helped me to reel it in. And then I also developed really good coping mechanisms. At the time in college, I was not sober, and I was actually using marijuana to cope with a lot of the things that I was going with. But my support system helped me to be sober. I got sober, and being in an outpatient treatment program helped me to look at my life, analyze what I could do better, how to change some things, as well as therapy that I've been in for 5 years now. Just analyzing my life, my mistakes, my failures, and also the good side of my life as well, helping me to see the silver lining in things to come, and also just navigating through life, because I like to say life be lifing, and you never know, but I just know I can control the things that I can control. And lastly, I tell myself to take things one moment at a time. A lot of people say take things one day at a time, but for me, 24 hours, that's a lot. That's a lot to think about. So I tell myself to take things one moment at a time, and that's how I get things done.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds, your philosophy of taking things a moment at a time. I was trying to find a way to tie this in with more. It seems like a lot of yours is faith-based, and that everybody's not that way. Well, DBT, they have, but be in the moment, I guess borrowing from other traditions, but that's the same thing. And then taking things as they come is, I guess, the serenity prayer. If we want to look at the spiritual side, take on what you can, but the only thing you can change is yourself. Everything else is, everybody's in charge of themselves in this world, and you got to find a way to deal with them and the situations one finds themselves in.
Absolutely.
Oh, also, with do you plan to work as your career in film or acting? Are you actively pursuing those interests at the moment?
Yes, I do some modeling and acting as well. I usually do commercial things or still photos, and I do have that incorporated in my life as well. However, now I am very selective of what roles I will and will not take. I do not want to take a role that demeans mental health wellness, as well as any roles that are derogatory in the African American community or portray us in a certain light. So I'm very strict on what roles I will and will not take, as well as the time that those roles will take out of me. My biggest thing is sleep, and I have to make sure I get 7 to 10 hours of sleep, which I'm like, I'd rather get 10 hours than 3 hours like I was getting before. So if projects are overnight or they are overly time consuming, I will reject them. But before when I was going through my diagnoses and navigating that, I was like, I'll take whatever. But now I'm very selective with what I do, and I make sure I put my mental health wellness and my self-care above everything. I don't care about the money. I care more about my health, because that's where my money will come anyway.
It is. Okay. That was, I guess, a follow-up question. Besides film projects, have you looked into there? There are there are people that specialize in, I guess, Christian-based films, and they're based here in Georgia. Have you? I'm kind of curious about that. I'd like to talk to you more about that afterwards. A strange connection to that world, going back to 1994. I went to I guess it was Billy Graham's Last Crusade back then. I was invited to, I guess, not a revival. I guess he's called them crusades, but those two brothers were there, and they are now in that film industry down in Albany. Small world. Okay.
That is awesome.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I guess. Oh, gosh, this has flowed by 20 minutes already. Okay. Okay. I thought. Okay. The final question. Have you had any memorable interactions with any of your audiences that lets you know your message of hope and was resonating with the public?
Yeah, that's actually my favorite part of the work that I do. Helping people has been like my biggest passion ever since I was young. And so working in this field, I'm able to do that in a way that really resonates with me. And just sharing my story and seeing how it affects different audiences means a lot to me, because I know I'm spreading hope and a message of hope, especially within the youth, because I'm 24 years old, letting people know that there's a different way. You do not have to hold all your trauma and your pain. There's people out there and resources to help you. But my first time that I ever went out and spoke with NAMI Georgia, it was at Georgia State University, which I felt was very full circle, because I graduated from Georgia State, and
right.
not even a year later, I was back talking in a way that I would have never thought would correlate. But that's just my higher power bringing me to the places where I need to be. But in this certain group, it was a group of grandmothers taking care of their children's children. And I was telling them, symptoms of mental health wellness or mental health illness that could arise during this time or as they go along, as well as making sure that they're taken care of as well. And I will never forget, a grandma came up to me and she just told me how proud she was of me and how I needed to keep going, and that, sometimes it was hard for her to understand what her younger child was going through, and that, she didn't really have the resources or tools to help them. But with me talking through NAMI and sharing my story, she had more of an insight. And that just really touched my heart, because like I said, it was my first time out speaking, and I was more nervous than usual. I didn't really know how it would work. But just hearing her say, like, you helped me and you helped me understand maybe what my granddaughter was going through was a lot for me. And then with the Respect Institute at the last DBHD meeting, which they hold probably like periodically, but they select who they would like to come out and talk, I had some really good feedback, and a lot of the adults was just saying that they didn't get a grip on their mental health wellness until they were older, kind of similar to what you were saying, like they was not navigating through this at my age. So she said what I had learned in my 24 years, it took her like 47 years to learn, and that once again she was proud of me as well. And them just saying they're proud of me just makes me feel like really warm inside, because I do try my best to put my best foot forward every day and be the best Sadeja that I can be. So hearing people and how it impacts them is, like I said, my favorite part of my job ever. Did you hear the last thing I said?
No.
I just said of like the DBHD and how she said, that was the last thing I said.
Okay. Thank you for your time today, Sadeja. It was a pleasure interviewing you, and hopefully this message will get out to other folks that they can have a streamlined process and get things resolved a lot sooner than it used to take people.
Yes, thank you. Just want to let people know that recovery is possible, and I'm a living example of that.
All right. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into Mind Matters, Building Skills and Breaking Barriers, the Clubhouse Atlanta way. Remember to visit our website at www.clubhouseatlanta.org and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're there, subscribe to us at your favorite network. We look forward to you joining us again next time on Mind Matters, Building Skills and Breaking Barriers, the Clubhouse Atlanta way.